Hi everyone. So as you guys know, I was given the opportunity to serve as a delegate for our denomination's annual meeting this year, and Pastor Eric has asked me to give you a report of the things that transpired there, as well as my overall impressions of the meeting itself. And you guys know that I am a storyteller, and so I want to begin by telling you a story that might give you some perspective or some understanding of how this year's annual meeting actually impacted me. So, I grew up in a family of all boys, and so I was always negotiating something or climbing something. And one day, I had climbed all the way up to the tippity top of the monkey bars, and I looked down, and a little boy caught my attention, and he said, "You're not allowed to be up there because you're a girl." Like I had sort of belonged to some sort of subspecies or something. And as far as I could tell, he had looked up and he had called me as he had seen me, and so I looked down and I returned the favor and I called him as I had seen him. And everything was fine until the teacher overheard what it was that I had had to say, and then I spent the rest of my recess time in timeout, though I wholeheartedly contended that what he had said to me, what I had said to him was just as bad as what he had said to me, and that it was completely unfair that he got to play for the remainder of recess. And that was the day that I learned that sometimes institutions operate by a different set of rules than what it is that we have at home, and sometimes they are implemented fairly, and sometimes they are not implemented fairly. And this thought process regarding institutions and organizations sort of continued all the way into my adult years and regarded even church denominations. Because as far as I could see, church denominations, had rules that I didn't grow up, believing or knowing, things that were just unfamiliar to me. And sometimes they were backed up biblically, but sometimes they were not. And they really did sometimes get implemented in a way that truly did hurt other people. And I found that these rules sort of protected either one of two things. One, traditions that were easily debatable, things especially that made you either look funny or sound funny, or sometimes they protected that particular denomination's bottom dollar. But I had no concept that they cared anything about the local congregations or the individuals that were within those denominations, or that they would listen to the people and the voices of those denominations, or that they would ever consider any ways that they might actually change their ways, their thoughts, their beliefs about certain things. And so prior to coming to Bridges, though I had been a follower of Christ for a very long time, I remained non-denominational. And when I joined Bridges because I loved God, I loved Christ, and I had come to love you. Not because I wanted to join in with the Evangelical Covenant Church. I tolerated the part that we were part of the Evangelical Covenant Church, and it sort of came out in my unwillingness to engage in conversation whenever Pastor Eric might bring it up, or my unwillingness to look at email updates or to check out the publications that were sometimes spread out on the table there, my unwillingness to engage the actual denomination itself. And that's worked out pretty well. I've grown a lot at Bridges. I've been able to use my gifts at Bridges. It's been a pretty good thing for me. Fine, really. But then I was given this opportunity to serve both Bridges and the denomination. And this required a lot of consideration on my part. But it came down to my willingness, my desire to serve you, some genuine curiosity about how much say the local congregation had in the denomination's annual meeting, but also I'm in seminary now, looking to go into ordained ministry, and I'm coming to that part where I'm beginning to wonder, who's going to ordain me? Is the Covenant Church one of which that I can actually be a part? And this was something that I really needed to see for myself. And so I accepted the challenge to be a delegate this year. And my first job as a delegate was to attend the trainings. Now there were 3. One was just sort of a new delegate orientation, which Pastor Eric was one of the leaders. And another one provided information on the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery, which sounds as complicated as it actually was. And another one regarded strategic alignment within the denomination itself. And I'm here just to share with you my experience. And at first I was really just put off by the way that these trainings were actually conducted. You know, I wasn't able to see the other delegates with whom I was meeting. I wasn't able to turn on my mic and ask a question or to provide for clarification. I wasn't able to see that all the questions that were going into the chat box were actually appearing on our screen so that we could see them too, because the chat box had a moderator who was deciding which questions could be seen and which ones would not be seen. And it was this lack of transparency that gave me that really drew me to a very quick conclusion that everything that I had thought about denominations in the past was actually very true. And after talking to Pastor Eric about this, and after talking to Alpha Dog about this, and after praying about this for a very long time, I came to the conclusion that, you know, when I originally accepted this challenge to be a delegate, I did so because I honestly wanted to give the denomination a fair shake. And up to this point, I really hadn't been doing so because I'd been pretty judgmental. And I decided that if I was going to follow through with my original intentions, I really needed to follow through with my commitment to both Bridges and to the denomination. And I am so glad that I did, because attending the annual meeting showed me that all of the things that I had thought about denominations up to that point were actually not true regarding the denomination of which we are a part. This meeting was a 3-day meeting. It was all virtual, but there were 269 different congregations that were represented. And every single delegate, every single congregation had a say not only in the vote, but in all of the conversations that were regarding that vote. Every person that wanted to be heard was able to be heard, regardless of which side of the issue that they were on. And this was so meaningful to me, both as a person and as a delegate. As a delegate, I got to vote to receive in 16 new churches to the denomination, pray for 24 new church planters, and of course, this is a denomination, so of course we got to talk about mission. But I learned that the mission of this denomination is to share the love of Christ wherever, whenever. That is their main concern. And so when we were talking about budget, we were talking about budget as it pertains to that particular mission. We got to honor people who had been faithful to that mission, people with awesome urban and ethnic ministries, but also people who had served sacrificially as pastors and as missionaries for a lifetime. And we also got to talk about how we now can live faithfully into that mission. And this year we decided that one of the ways that we can do that is by seeking reconciliation with some of the Native American groups that had been hurt by the Covenant Church in its formative years. And seeing the healing that took place between these groups, the hugs, the tears, the bond that was created. It was so powerful for me, and I was so thankful that I got to be a part of that. It testified to the way that this denomination values and loves people and makes that its primary concern, of its willingness to look at some of its past mistakes and to make amends for those particular mistakes, to look at the rules that they've created and the ways that they have implemented those rules, and to really ask themselves the hard questions, you know? Can this be backed up by the Bible? And is there a better way that we can go about doing this, that we can share the love of Christ in a way that builds people up instead of separating them or tearing them down? It made me see that denominations, particularly this one, they're willing to reconsider the traditions that they have held for so long, and I cannot express how powerful this actually was to me, to see that these long-held beliefs that I had had were actually not true at all. And so I want to thank you, Bridges, for giving me this opportunity and, of course, for entrusting me with your vote, but for allowing me the opportunity to rethink some of the things that had been so ingrained in me and to learn anew and to grow. And I cannot believe that I'm actually going to say what I'm about to say. But I think that it's pretty safe to say that when I came to Bridges, I found my church, but I also found my denomination, one that will one day, hopefully, ordain me. And so I want to thank you for that. Sorry for going over 3 minutes. We all knew that that was a lofty goal. But I love you guys, and I hope to talk to you again soon. Bye.